My first ever commander deck, built completely from scratch, was a Krenko deck. Not that Krenko, but Krenko Tin Street Kingpin. In fact, that was also the subject of my first video on this channel, so if you want, you could go and watch that, although because it was the first one, the editing is kind of bad and the quality isn't super great, but if you want to see what deck that is and what I built as my first commander deck, there you have it. Before that, I came from 60 card formats, as I've said in my previous video as well, and so coming into commander, I played a lot of precons to begin with to kind of get a feel of what commander was, and for some reason those precons felt very unfocused, which I think is by design, but it felt very open-ended, as if it didn't really know what it wanted to do, which direction it wanted to go. It was more of a base or a template for a player to enhance and upgrade their deck as they saw fit and what fit their playstyle and what their wants are. And so I went, you know, fuck it, I'll build my own. And with the help of Space Plum, actually, we took apart my Dihada precon because it had so much legendaries in it that it had a lot of options for me to build from. I picked Krenko. I used that Krenko to build a Goblin tribal with a Voltron sub-theme so that I could keep Krenko in and make more tokens with Krenko. That was very fun. That deck evolved with me as a commander player and as a Magic player in general, to the point where if I still had it today as it would be a bracket 4 deck, and it was very aggro, explosive, and deadly very early on because of how much Krenko built himself up and then also make tokens as he does. It could take people out with commander damage really quickly and then still have backup in my tokens to protect against the rest of the table as well, and then go again. I would have stuff in it to give it flying, to give it trample, and unblockable, a lot of stuff like that. It was very fun, but it kind of became the same story every game. Every game I played, it kind of went the same way. Either I got Krenko out and got some protection on him and started swinging until I won, or I was unlucky with the card draw and I couldn't really make enough tokens with that Krenko and had to rely on whatever I drew otherwise, the other goblins, and then it's just another tribal deck, you know? And so I felt very restricted in the color I was in because it was just mono red, and even though there are colorless options to boost that, it wasn't enough for me. And so I started looking into Rakdos, and Rakdos had a lot of cool options for me. I got to push more into like what to do with the tokens that made every game a little bit more different. There are a few good options for legendaries in Rakdos when it comes to goblins. I was open to other commanders as well, like commanders that allow you to sacrifice stuff and would fit very well into what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to use the tokens as kind of a currency, right? I ended up on Wart Bogart Auntie. Not only does she work perfect with the sacrifice outlets because she allows you to bring stuff back, but she's also Goblin herself, so lands that have creature type as something that matters, like Path of Ancestry or Cavern of Souls, lands like that, the options are there when my commander is the same as all the other creatures pretty much. There are some non-goblins in here, but they are just extra flavor. Now that we have a whole other color, I have options to add a lot more goblins. There are some mono black goblins that are amazing. There's even a couple Rakdos specific goblins. I got access to a lot more cost reducers, goblins that says on them that goblins cost less, or anthem goblins that gives +1 counters to other goblins and stuff like that. I also got more sacrifice outlets, more tutors, because there are a few goblins that allow you to tutor 4 goblins. There's even a non-goblin in here that allows me to do that, which is very funny, because there is a loop that you'll see in a bit when we go through all the cards. Not to mention that so much of the core Rakdos plan just synergizes so perfectly with goblins and creature tokens specifically. Like, it's perfect. Sack a few tokens for mana, and then bam, a Mayhem Devil trigger, or a Blood Artist trigger, or a Falconwrath Noble trigger, or similar, you know? And with how much tokens you can create with goblins, you have a lot of weapons, you have a lot of bombs pretty much that you can just go off with if you want to. Not to mention that there's a lot of goblins already in mono red that allows you to just sacrifice some goblins to make more goblins. You can kind of quietly set up. You can quietly put down the pieces that would trigger if something happens, and then you put down a couple pieces that allow you to go for those triggers. Or if they do a board wipe, that might just trigger all your engines and then you're golden. In a way, this deck is kind of self-protecting against board wipes. It's also so good on the recursion, considering that my commander will recur stuff on upkeep by itself. And so I think we should just go and have a look at all the cards, and I'll explain how they work together, the synergy and the game plan a little bit better. So here we have it. This is the deck laid out in card types. I'll also go over the loops, although there's no infinites in the deck, like full on loop, there is kind of a combo, so we'll go over that when we get to it. But first, this is the commander, Wart Boggart Auntie for 2 and Rakdos. You get a 3/3 Goblin Shaman with Fair. It also says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target Goblin card from your graveyard to your hand, which I think is the selling point of Wart. That's why I picked Wart, because it's a Goblin, but also because it allows me to recur stuff every turn. So if I have something that's massive impact when it comes in, and I have a sacrifice outlet, I can get the benefit from sacrificing it, and I can get another ETB on the next turn, if I have the mana again. Next up, we have Enchantments. And in here, I have a few enchantments. I used to have the whole infinite life gain, life drain, but I felt like that didn't have anything to do with goblins, and so I took that out in favor of some more ramp, some better lands, and stuff like that. And first up is Magistrate Veto. For 2 and 1 red, you get an enchantment that says white and blue creatures can't block. This is a very nice foil version I got in Japan. This is pretty much just a backup plan in this deck. It was in the original Krenko Goblin deck, and that was just because it lets tokens get in very easily. If there is blue and white creatures, then you kind of have a free combat damage win on the table with this. So next up is Phyrexian Arena. This one is a promo card. Very happy to have this one. For 1 and 2 black, you get an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and lose 1 life. So this is helping out with the card draw that you don't really get in Rakdos as easily. So with this, I get to draw 1 extra card per turn at the cost of losing 1 life. And of course, we have Impact Tremor for 1 and 1 red. You get an enchantment that says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Impact Tremor deals 1 damage to each opponent. There are a lot of alternatives for Impact Tremors, but you have to select target or player each time, which can often lead to like spiked plays in casual Magic, and so having something that does it equally is just easier and can potentially take out the entire table in one Krenko activation, for example, because Krenko is in here even though it's not technically a win con. And then we also have Goblin War Drums. For 2 and 1 red, you get an enchantment that says each creature you control can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. So it's giving all your creatures menace. This is just a card made before menace was a keyword, so very good in a deck that goes super wide with tokens. Again, another backup plan if you want to swing out and do damage. Next up is instants, and to start off we have Darkness. For 1 black, you get a instant that prevents all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So that's awesome and a good tool for politicking. It's in here also because sometimes people will know what you're up to and they will try and target you, so having the extra backup in a 1 mana protection spell is definitely worth it. And of course we have some rituals. We have Brightstone Ritual for 1 red. I can add 1 red to my mana pool for each goblin in play. In this deck you can quickly get up to at least 20 tokens or 20 goblins in total. This will just allow you to play pretty much every goblin in the deck that way. And of course I also have Dark Ritual. For 1 black I create 3 black, so very self-explanatory. Put it in pretty much every deck that can run it because of how good a ramp it is. And we have a little bit removal in Cut Down. For 1 black I can destroy target creature with total power and toughness 5 or less. Not necessarily the best removal, but for 1 mana I think it's worth having in here considering a lot of the other slots are taken up by crucial goblin and token makers. And at the end we have Chaos Warp. For 2 and 1 red, you get an instant that says the owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveal the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, put it onto the battlefield. I love the gamble of Chaos Warp, and sometimes it's worth doing on your own stuff as well. Like if I need better goblins and all I have left are tokens, I can cast this on a token. The token will go away, but I will get something out from my deck instead. And for sorceries, we have Hordeling Outburst. For 1 and 2 red, you get a sorcery that allows you to put 3 1/1 goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield. So for 3 mana, you get 3 goblins. And we have Wheel of Fortune, not necessary. There are other cheap wheel effects that you can do in red and black, and those are fine. However, I had this available. I think it's very good to have wheel effects in a deck that is very dependent on what you have in your hand, what you have available then and there. So if you have this and all the other gas in your hand has been played already, this will allow you to refill and potentially draw another loop or another powerful engine. And we have Krenko's Command. For 1 and 1 red, you get to create 2 1/1 goblin tokens, and so for 2 mana, 2 goblins. And we also have a Fetto Dredging. For 3 and 1 black, you get a sorcery that allows you to return up to 3 target creatures of a creature type of your choice from your graveyard to your hand. And we have Demonic Tutor. For 1 and 1 black, you can search your library for a card and take it into your hand, then reshuffle. A tutor, pretty cheap tutor to cast, and will help you find whatever piece you need. And at the end, we have a really good finisher in Goblin Warstrike. For 1 red, it deals damage equal to the number of goblins you control to target player. So this could be a 1 mana on the spot kill someone kind of spell. Then for lands, for the most part, not that much exciting. A fair bit of basics. As you will see in the deck list, there is a lot of basics, but we do have a fair few non-basics. And to begin with, we have Phyrexian Tower, which is a very nice sacrifice outlet to have on a land. You can tap for a colorless, or you can tap and sacrifice a creature to add 2 black. So if I can sacrifice a creature that can ping something else and I get mana, that's awesome. And we have Bloodstained Mire, it's a fetch land. We have Command Tower. We have Tarnation Vista. It enters tap, but as it enters, you can choose a color and add 1 of that, or you can pay 1 and tap it. For each color bong mono permanent you control, add 1 mana of that color. So if I choose red and I have 30 goblins on board, I can add a lot of mana through this, so that's worth it entering tapped. And then we have 3 Tree City, which is the tribal Gaia's Cradle. It enters, you choose a creature type and you can add 1 colorless, or you can pay 2 and tap it and add equal to the amount of that creature type. We have Myriad Landscape in here just because it's pretty and I had it really. Colorless land that you can pay and sacrifice to find 2 basics. They do enter tapped, but that's fine. Then we have a Scry land in Temple of Malice, another card that's in here pretty much just because I opened it, because I don't really like lands that enter tapped, but this is very pretty and this deck is blinged out. I wanted cool lands to go with that. So, and we have Tainted Peak. It adds 1 colorless, or you can add a black or a red if you control a swamp. And we have Foreboding Ruins, which is a dual land that can enter untapped if you reveal a mountain or a swamp from your hand. Of course, we also have Bojuka Bog. We're not the only ones trying to do stuff from our graveyard in Magic, so having something to deal with other people's graveyard is pretty good. We have Smoldering Marsh. It enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. We have Urborg. Every land is a swamp. We have Mortuary Mire. It enters tapped, but as it enters, you may put a creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. Very similar to what Ward does, so having that on a land as a backup is definitely worth it. And of course, we have Badlands. It's a dual land that can add 1 of each. We also have a Surveil land. Very happy to have opened this. The Rakdos one is very pretty. And like I said before, we do have Path of Ancestry, which allows you to scry 1 if you cast anything that shares a type with the commander using this. Then artifacts. To begin with, we have Caged Sun. For 6 mana, you get a artifact that enters. You choose a color. I would probably choose red. Creatures you control of the chosen color gets +1/+1. So all your goblins and goblin tokens. Whenever a land's ability causes you to add 1 mana of the chosen color, you add 1 additional of that. So all my mountains now tap for 2, which is awesome. We have Gilded Lotus, a 5 mana rock that can add 3 of any 1 color. And we have Helm of the Host, and a great target for Helm of the Host would be potentially a Krenko or Ward, so that you could recur even more creatures on upkeep. Then we have Patchwork Banner. It's an artifact that allows you to choose a creature type as it enters, and those creatures get +1/+1, but it can also add 1 mana of any color. And we have Swiftfoot Boots. For 2 mana, you get an equipment that costs 1 to equip that gives the creature hexproof and haste. We have an Arcane Signet. Add 1 of your commander's color identity. We have a Ruby Medallion. Red spells cost 1 less to cast for 2 mana. Resurrection Orb is a great card in this deck, because for 2 mana and 4 equip costs, which is a little bit expensive, you get a equipment that gives that creature lifelink, and whenever that creature dies, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. It's all about sacrificing in this deck, or if someone tries to remove anything and you have this equipped, you get it back, which is awesome. Of course, we have a Soul Ring in here. 1 mana, add 2 mana. Commander Sphere, add 1 from your commander's color identity, and you can sacrifice it to draw a card. We have Eldrazi Monument, which is incredible in here. Although creatures get indestructible, so I can't destroy my creatures, I can still sacrifice them. For 5 mana, I get an artifact that says creatures you control gets +1 and have flying and indestructible. And so this will allow you to fly in with goblins and take someone out pretty easily. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature, and if you can't, you sacrifice the artifact. Then we have an Anthem in Vanquisher's Banner. For 5 mana, you get a artifact that allows you to choose a creature type as it enters, and creatures you control of that type gets +1/+1. Whenever you cast a creature spell of that chosen type, you draw a card. So a little bit of card draw. necessary in Rakdos for sure. We have Scepter of Eternal Glory. For 4 mana, you get a legendary artifact that adds 1 of any color, or it can add 3 of any color if you control 3 or more lands with the same name, which we'll probably end up doing considering how many basics we run. And we have Icon of Ancestry, another anthem. For 3 mana, you choose a creature type, they get +1/+1, but you can also pay 3 and tap this to look at the top 3 cards of your library and reveal a creature card of the chosen type from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And at the end we have Lightning Greaves. For 2 mana you get an equipment that costs 0 to equip, and it gives them haste and shroud. And then finally we have creatures. To start off here, we have Goblin Matron. For 3 mana, you get a 1/1 that when it enters allow you to search for a goblin card, reveal it, and put it into your hand and shuffle. So it's a goblin tutor on a goblin, pretty standard. It's very, very powerful in this deck because there is a combo that we're trying to get to, and to do that, we have to find a very specific card to get it going. We have Boggart Harbinger. For 2 and 1 black, you get a 2/1 that does the same. When it comes into play, you search your library for a goblin card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. So it's not exactly the same, but pretty much. We have Volley Veteran. For 3 and 1 red, you get a 4/2 goblin that when it enters, it deals damage to target creature an opponent controls equal to the number of goblins you control. So this is very strong removal in this deck considering how many goblins we play and how many goblins we make. We have Falkenrath Noble. It's another sacrifice payoff. For 3 and 1 black, you get a 2/2 Vampire Noble. So it's not a goblin, but it does have flying, and whenever Falkenrath Noble or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this is a way to threaten people and just keep people in check. And we have the old MVP himself. It's Krenko Tin Street Kingpin. For 2 and 1 red, you get a 1/2 goblin that says when it attacks, put a +1 counter on it, then create a number of 1/1 goblin creature tokens equal to Krenko's power. So this was the Krenko that made me want to build a goblin deck and made me want to get into doing my own commander decks. This isn't the exact card, but this is Goblin Instigator. For 1 and 1 red, you get a 1/1 goblin rogue. When it enters, you create a 1/1 goblin creature token, so it's a goblin that creates a goblin. This is the strongest card in this deck because of its ability. When it enters, you search for any number of goblin cards, reveal them to all players, shuffle your library, and put them on top in any order. So you stack your deck pretty much. And I'm going to put this aside and show you the card that this combos with, allowing you to just go crazy in 1 turn. And of course, we do have Krenko Mob Boss in here. For 2 and 2 red, you get a 3/3 goblin that can tap to create X 1/1 goblin creature tokens, where X is the number of goblins you control. So for every time you do this, you double the amount of goblins you control. We have Goblin King. For 1 and 2 red, you get a 2/2 that says all goblins in play gain Mountain Walk and +1/+1 while this card remains in play. This combos incredibly with Blood Moon, which I used to run, but I don't run it anymore because it just turns other decks off completely. And this isn't trying to be a competitive deck, this is just my favorite deck, and so to have something in here that just makes people unable to play wasn't fun. It was fun in the beginning, but then it got old really quickly. And so just having them have Mountain Walk and +1 is definitely worth it by itself. That's why it's still in here. We have Hobgoblin Bandit Lord. For 1 and 2 red, you get a 2/3 goblin that says other goblins you control gets +1, but you can also pay 1 and tap him, and he deals damage equal to the number of goblins that have entered onto the battlefield under your control this turn to any target. So let's say you go off and you create 30 tokens for some reason. You pay 1, you tap this, and you can deal 30 damage to someone, and then you can sacrifice all those tokens to something else and deal that much damage to someone else. With just this in play and another token generator, you've taken out 2 players right there. And then we have one of the best non-goblin creatures in this deck. It's Mugcatcher. For 2 and 2 red, you get a 2/2 Mercenary. I think it's a human. This card is so old that it only has Mercenary as a creature type, but I'm pretty certain it says Mercenary on Scryfall. Human Mercenary on Scryfall. For 3 and tapping it, you can search your library for a goblin card and put that into play, then shuffle your library. Pretty much no matter what, if I have 4 mana and a little bit more, I will tap this and go for Goblin Recruiter instantly, because that allows me to set up next turn for an insane play, which we will get to. We have Goblin Surgeon. For 1 red, you get a 0/2 goblin that allows you to sacrifice a goblin to regenerate target creature. So if someone tries to fuck with your stuff, no they don't. We have Deep Goblin Skull Taker. For 2 and 1 black, you get a 2/2 with Menace. At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, put a +1 counter on Deep Goblin Skulltaker. And descending is pretty much just if a permanent card was put into a graveyard from anywhere. And we have Beetleback Chief for 2 and 2 red. You get a 2/2 goblin that creates 2 goblins as it enters. Oh, this is also one of my favorite cards in this deck. This is my first edition Siege Gang commander that I opened in my Scourge box opening. If you want to see that, go check that video out. It will probably be mentioned on the thingy up here. For 3 and 2 red, you get a 2/2 goblin that says when Siege Gang comes into play, put 3 1/1 goblins into play. Then 1 and 1 red, you can sacrifice a goblin, and this deals 2 damage to target creature or player. So another sacrifice outlet that does a lot of damage for 2 mana. And then we have another non-goblin. It's Mahadi Emporium Master for 1 and Rakdos. You get a 3/3 Cat Devil. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. This goes crazy in token decks, and killing tokens to create treasure tokens is awesome. And then we have another non-goblin that creates treasures. It is Pitless Plunderer for 3 and 1 black. You get a 1/4 human pirate. Whenever another creature you control dies, create a treasure token. So this does the same thing, it just creates it right away. And we have Pashalik Mons for 2 and 1 red. You get a 2/2 that says whenever it or another goblin you control dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. And you can pay 3 and 1 red to sacrifice a goblin to create 2 goblins. And we have Sayova Lava Tongue, which is such a good card in this. And this was also one of the cards that I potentially could have used as a commander. It is a goblin that costs Rakdos for a 2/2 with Death Touch. At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, each opponent may discard a card or sacrifice a permanent. Sayova Lava Tongue deals 3 damage to each opponent who didn't. And so if you're sacrificing something and then passing the turn, then everyone has to either discard a card, sacrifice something, or take 3 damage. So that is incredible threat right here. And I had this really fancy version of it. And then we have a Rakdos staple in pretty much every Rakdos deck. You should find space for a Mayhem Devil. For 1 and Rakdos, you get a 3/3 Devil that says whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. This goes crazy with sacrificing goblin tokens, but also all the treasures from those treasure makers that we have in here. And here we have the other part of the recruiter combo. It's Mux's Goblin Grandee. For 4 and 2 red, you get a 4/4 Goblin Noble. When Mux's Goblin Grandee enters the battlefield, reveal the top 6 cards of your library, put all Goblin creature cards with the converted mana cost 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. When Muxus attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each goblin you control. So the first ability is insane. The second ability is also insane. This is a on-the-spot kill someone potential. With Goblin Recruiter, which allows you to go through your entire library and stack the deck. If you put Muxus on top of that, or whatever position after you need, if you can stack your deck with Muxus in there so that every card after Muxus that would be revealed comes in for free, you have the potential to just pop off. I've had so much luck with this that I don't think I've ever played a Goblin Recruiter and not won the game. And obviously there are ways to stop that. There are ways to make me shuffle my deck. There are ways to make me not benefit from casting creatures at all or similar. But this is so strong in here, and with how much stuff you can sacrifice to gain mana and go really fast, and all the goblins that do tutor for other tutors, for example, you can do this so often. It becomes kind of boring sometimes if you go for this all the time, but if it's like the last game of the night and you're like very ready to just call it, this combo will just end the game pretty much. And then we have Munition Expert. For Rakdos, you get a 1/1 with Flash, and so this can come in as a huge surprise. When it enters the battlefield, you may have it deal damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to the number of goblins you control. This is kind of like the other goblin that does the same, but this with Flash allows you to just on the spot remove something. These are the kind of cards that I was so excited to be able to play once I added black into the equation. This is an awesome card, and I love the retro foil this comes in as well. And of course we have Blood Artist. For 1 and 1 black, you get a 0/1 vampire that says whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it's the same as Falconwrath Noble, it just doesn't have flying, but it does the same. It allows you to gain a lot of life for killing stuff. And we have Viconia, draw Apostate. For 2 and 1 black, you get a 2/3 Elf Cleric that says at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 more creature cards in your graveyard, return a creature card at random from your graveyard to your hand. So it's kind of like Luris, but on a mono black creature, which is awesome. And we have more ways to cast stuff for free in Warren Instigator. For 2 red, you get a 1/1 Goblin Berserker with double strike that says whenever it deals damage to an opponent, you may put a Goblin creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. And we have Frog Tosser Banneret. For 1 and 1 black, you get a 1/1 Goblin Rogue with haste that says that Goblin spells and rogue spells you play cost 1 less to play. So a little bit of cost reduction. We have Grenzo Dungeon Warden. For X and Rakdos, you get a 2/2, but he enters with X+1 counters on it. There's a potential to make a giant goblin with this, which is very fun. And then you could pay 2 to put the bottom card of your library into your graveyard. If it's a creature card with power less than or equal to Grenzo's power, put it onto the battlefield. If you cast this where X is 4 or 5, odds are you'll get something out of it. And if not, you can return it with Wart anyway, so it doesn't matter. This was also one of the commanders I was looking to potentially use, but I figured this isn't necessarily helping me in the command zone as much, and with commander tax potentially added on top of this, it would be kind of expensive. And then we have another auntie, it's Mad Auntie. For 2 and 1 black, you get a 2/2 goblin that gives other goblins +1/+1, and you can tap her to regenerate a target goblin. And we have one of the best goblins ever printed in Skirk Prospector. For 1 red, you get a 1/1 that allows you to sacrifice a goblin for 1 red mana. Well, to add 1 red mana. And so this is one of the cheapest ways to sacrifice your tokens to have stuff happen. This is also one of the best ways to sacrifice for payoffs. This went into my mono red one as well, obviously, but it's even more powerful in a Rakdos deck. And we have Stalactite Stalker. For 1 black, you get a 1/1 with Menace, and at the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, put a +1 counter on it. And so this is another one of those where it'll get out of hand pretty quickly. For 2 and 1 black, you can also sacrifice it, and then target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is Stalactite's power. And we have Sling Gang Lieutenant. For 3 and 1 black, you get a 1/1 that when it enters, it creates 2 1/1s, and you can sacrifice a goblin, and target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this is another perfect piece of this whole puzzle about sacrificing and getting benefits from it. And we have Goblin Warchief. For 1 and 2 red, you get a 2/2 goblin that says goblin spells you cast cost 1 less to play, and goblins you control have haste, which is very, very, very powerful. And at the end, we have Gut, True Soul Zealot. For 2 and 1 red, you get a 2/2 goblin shaman that says whenever you attack, you may sacrifice another creature or an artifact. If you do, create a 4/1 black skeleton creature token with menace that's tapped and attacking. This doesn't really come up that often, but it is another sacrifice outlet. I can swing with a token, and if I'll kill it anyways and create a 4/1 instead of a 1/1, for example. So that is awesome. It gives the token menace as well. And so that's it. There are a few cards I would like to potentially bling out a little bit, get some fancier versions, like potentially getting a foil retroframe Krenko, or there is a serialized version as well, but I don't think I'll ever spend that much on it unless I somehow stumble upon it for a very cheap price in a card shop somewhere. That's it. That's how the deck works. That's how the deck functions. That's the game plans. I think I've explained it somewhat well. There is a lot of synergy happening in between all the goblins and how they're sacrificed, how all the tokens would be sacrificed, and the combo of Recruiter and Muxus is just pretty much unbeatable in most casual tables. And so I have stuff to end the game if I want to. There's a lot of stuff I can do in here. This deck means a lot to me. It's definitely my baby, so I'll give it back to myself in the future. And so there you have it. That's Wart. That's my signature casual deck. This is very much like my baby, my commander baby. This is a deck I will always bring with me no matter where I travel, just in case. Like, you never know who would want to duel you, I guess. I don't think I want this to be much more powerful, potentially adding card draw to it somehow if I could. It's been blinged out pretty much just by cards I've opened myself, so there's a lot of stories in every card I play. I love that. There's cards that I bought from traveling. There are cards that have been given to me as gifts as well. It's very much my commander baby. That simple as that. It's my baby. It might not be the deck I reach for first, like I've said, but it plays so well. I know this deck in and out. It's grown with me as a commander player, so the deck list will be in the description. You might have seen me play this on shows and wondered, like, how does it work? Well, now you know. And what's the story? Well, now you know. If you like these videos, let me know, because remember, I'm making these videos for you guys, and so If you like this, if there's something you'd like me to check out different or do differently, I guess, let me know in the comments. Leave a like if you did like it, and who knows, maybe in the next video I could potentially look at one of Plum's decks, maybe. I'll see you guys in the next video, and until then, bye!